Hello and welcome back to an episode of Generation Films. My name is American Ben, coming to you live from my closet, and today we are going to reimagine the 1998 DreamWorks animated film The Prince of Egypt through the eyes of Pharaoh. The Prince of Egypt is one of the most underrated animated films of the past few decades. Just about anyone I know who's seen it, including myself, vouches for the high quality of its narrative and songs therein. It's also a very emotional movie and easy to connect to the plight of the Israelites. If, however, you haven't seen it, it retells, albeit not strict to its source text, the Exodus story from the Bible. That is, the tale of the Israelites' escape from slavery in Egypt. If you don't know that story, it goes kind of like this. In ancient Egypt, Pharaoh, viewing the Israelite denizens of Egypt as threats, orders their children slaughtered at birth and imprisons the rest of them as slaves. One Israelite who survives is Moses, as his mother places him in a basket when he's an infant and sends him into the Nile, down course of which he comes into the arms of Pharaoh's daughter and is raised in the palace as one of Pharaoh's own. When he comes of age, Moses learns of his heritage. He's haunted by the enslavement of his people and flees Egypt in horror, where he meets God. God then tells Moses to go back to Egypt, free the Israelite slaves, and bring them to the promised land. Moses follows God's orders, but the new Pharaoh, who has ascended to the throne following the death of the old one, refuses to let the Israelites go. So God inflicts 10 plagues on the kingdom of Egypt, sequentially intensifying from bloody water to killing the firstborn son of every Egyptian family. Pharaoh thus finally relents and allows the Israelites to go free. The Israelites flee Egypt, but Pharaoh changes his mind and goes after them. But God, through Moses, parts the sea, and the Israelites safely escape Pharaoh's clutches. Now, to those of you yet uninitiated to this channel, I suppose I should probably take some time to reaffirm that, yes, I sympathize with the Israelites, that Pharaoh bastard. However, if you aren't so inclined to reduce the psychological dynamics at play in Pharaoh's, or more specifically Ramses' mind, to that vague and mystical dark spark we term evil, then we might come to understand the impetus for Pharaoh's actions a bit better. I mean, he is a human after all, though he'd strongly disagree with that statement. So yes, let's examine Pharaoh's actions through a philosophical lens, and rather than assume that he represents the epitome of evil and the Israelites the same of good, let's start with a blank slate. First, Ramses' father, Seti, is operating on the philosophy that the Israelites are a threat to his rule, and thus, as he's God, a threat to all being. He tells Moses this is why he must enslave the Israelites and kill off their progeny.
Moses, sometimes, for the greater good, sacrifices must be made.
Ah, Seti, classic utilitarian theorist is he. Now, we assume that Seti is wrong because, well, slavery and killing is wrong. It's just wrong. There is never a need to kill. Well, except for when Moses kills a guard, or when, you know, the Israelites' God kills all firstborn Egyptian children across the land. God uses murder for a different end than Pharaoh, but nonetheless uses it, like Pharaoh, to achieve a desired outcome. Of course, the Israelites would say, well, enslaving us obstructs us from our full potential, which, if achieved, would allow us to help Egypt flourish. But Pharaoh would probably respond, well, look at all these fabulous pyramids. Look at the majesty of my kingdom. I sort of think we're doing just fine with you guys as slaves, just saying. The Israelites may too aver, killing us is unwise, for it will stir in us a desperation to break free and escape the kingdom, and so you'll lose all of our merits at once, and perhaps even be felled anyway in due time. But Pharaoh would then say, I'd rather have you dead than overthrowing me. You're an industrious and enterprising people, and I can't let such merit persist if it starts from blood that isn't mine own. Well, you see, this back and forth could go on forever. And alas, we will never quite know how Egypt would have fared without slavery in the first place to raise its marvelous structures, some of which we still know today. Better yet, perhaps the Israelites are a threat to Pharaoh's rule. However, to me, the Israelites' most true utilitarian argument is to say, they who most merit rule should have it, for this will best serve the greater good. To which Pharaoh would then say in his subconscious, I actually don't really seek to benefit the all, but the one, myself. God among men, he who makes existence be, and without which it will but cease. I'm awesome. And then he would kill every Israelite in the kingdom for daring to even threaten him like that. What I'm getting at here is that, righteous as it may be to wield the throne in magnanimous fashion, it's not so easy to maintain one's rule if we're to measure the reigns of kings across the course of history. Listen, it's easy to say, Pharaoh, just be a good guy, man, but he doesn't want to be a good guy. He wants to be God. He is a god as far as he's concerned, and to relinquish that truth, the truth of his ancestors, the truth born thousands of years ere the now, is an unthinkable action. Enter Seti's son Ramses. Ramses is a tragic villain if there ever was one. As a ruler, he must consider the greater good, and yet, as a god, how could he separate the greater good from his own greatest good? More practically, Ramses is an insecure man. He doubts his competency and his leadership abilities. He isn't such an obviously bad-tempered gent. He's rather loving to his brother, actually. Moses is seemingly far more clever and talented than Ramses, though. And as Ramses is the heir to the throne, this must only further Ramses' feelings of inadequacy, especially as his father seems to openly disdain him for his shortcomings and favor Moses instead. Ramses is sort of a Commodus figure vis-a-vis Marcus Aurelius in this way, to use a good Roman analogy. Thus, unable to sufficiently fill his father's shoes and sensing his inadequacy, Ramses becomes insecure and desperate to prove he isn't inadequate at all. And so Egypt gets a mad fool for a king. On the other hand, unlike Commodus, Ramses isn't as incapable as he's made out to be, and his insecurity leads him to build a greater Egypt than his father before him. Listen, let's be honest. How much death has man's insecurity caused throughout human history? I'd say quite a lot. And yet Ramses' insecurity also leads to great progress. And if we're going to see progress as an ultimately moral end, then well, has Ramses really done anything wrong? More importantly, think about Ramses' feelings in this situation. He's intended to be a god of Egypt. And should he fail to lead the kingdom to new heights, or should it come tumbling down under his watch, his detractors, first among them being his father, will be proved correct. And he'll have to live the rest of his life out, and then presumably eternity too, aka kind of a long time, as a failure, to be ridiculed among all souls. It is he, Ramses, the foolish king, who let Egypt die. Thus, to let the Israelites go is to fail for all eternity. But worse, to let the Israelites go is to invalidate his entire conception of the world and the belief system of his people. It is to invalidate his gods and thereby himself.
If only you would let the Hebrews go.
I will not be dictated to. I will not be threatened. I am the morning and the evening star. I am Pharaoh.
Try to see things from Pharaoh's perspective here. He is God in his view. This is the view his people have held for thousands of years. There is no truth but this truth, and this is the only truth he has ever known. And now Moses has come before him to claim that indeed his gods are false, and it is the God of the Israelites, a God who favors the Israelites, who is the ultimate creator, the sun, the stars, Yoda, the moon, and all. We don't think twice before accepting that God is of course angry with Pharaoh. He's keeping slaves under hard labor and murdering masses of people, all whilst living in luxury after all. However, Pharaoh and his people fully expect that were there gods to intervene, such deities would only affirm the greatest good to be the prosperity of Egypt at all cost, and then they would smite those evildoers seeking to bring down the Egyptian empire by going free. Commanding to Pharaoh, "Let my people go," is akin to demanding, disregard your entire faith, spurn your gods, reject your mandate, and accept the will of the Israelite God, for he is not on your side. And it is too akin to demanding, fail your father and prove your unworth. This is no easy task for one man, and yet upon the death of his son, he relents and fulfills it. Well, almost. Ramses is a tragic villain. Not just in that Egypt bears the brunt of the plagues during his reign, and not just because he loses his son to the 10th of them, but also because he's made to be the ass of history via a choice of two evils. Hold strong against the Israelites and see Egypt destroyed, or relinquish his divine right and delegitimize the gods of his people. I'd not like very much to be in his position, though I suppose it'd actually be kind of fun for a while, before the frogs and locusts overrun the kingdom. So tell me, what would you do if you were in Ramses' shoes or sandals or whatever? Would you free the Israelites for the sake of a moral code that doesn't even really exist yet, and then do your best to maintain order in a kingdom that has just surrendered itself to a foreign god? Or do you attempt to crush the Israelites and fight the powers of said Israelite god? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways, that's the video. It's getting hot in here, so I gotta bring it to a close. Please do give it a big thumbs up if you enjoy it. Remember, as I just said, comments down below. Should be a really fun discussion down there. Remember to hit subscribe and that notification bell so you don't miss a damn thing. For now, my name is American Ben, and I'll catch you next time. Generation Films, peace.